I was in the waiting room of the medical office when my cell phone vibrated with a message that froze me. Mom, I'm leaving on a cruise through the Caribbean. I sold the beach house and Dad's watch. We needed the money. Goodbye. Before continuing, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. We love to know how far our stories reach. My name is Margaret Johnson. I am 68 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought my life was stable and that I had a loving family. I have been a widow for only a short time. I was still trying to recover from the loss of Robert, my husband of more than 40 years, when my only daughter revealed a side of herself I never imagined. It all began on a Monday morning. I was waiting for my routine checkup when another message arrived on my phone. It was from Jennifer. Mom, I stopped by the apartment and took the documents for the beach house and Dad's old watch. I already signed the sales for both. Tomorrow I'm leaving on a luxury cruise through the Caribbean and needed the money. I bought a one-way ticket. Mark is coming with me. I read the message over and over, unable to take it in. My daughter, the one I considered my support after Robert's death, had sold the beach house, a story of more than 30 years built with my husband's effort, and also the watch he never took off, his only vanity. With trembling hands, I tried to call her. The call rang until it went to voicemail. I tried several more times until, on the 6th attempt, she answered, annoyed. What is it, Mom? I'm packing. Jennifer, what does that message mean? You couldn't sell the house or your father's watch. They were mine. There was a short silence and then a dry, almost mocking laugh. Technically they were Dad's. I don't have time for drama. Now you have that old apartment to live in. That's enough. Mark found last-minute spots on the cruise and we needed the money quickly. But you can't. I already did, Mom. Do you remember the papers you signed last month giving me power of attorney? You didn't even read them carefully. I signed everything legally in your name. The money is already in my account. I have to hang up, the taxi to the airport is arriving. Daughter, please, my voice broke. Mom, don't be dramatic. You are 68 years old, you don't need a beach house. Mark and I deserve to enjoy life while we are still young. I'll send you pictures from the Caribbean. And she hung up. I stayed there, sitting on a hard plastic chair, still holding the phone in my hand, while a storm of emotions consumed me: shame, anger, betrayal, despair. Mrs. Johnson, the secretary called me. Are you all right? I shook my head. I got up almost like a robot and asked to reschedule the appointment. I didn't have the strength for a checkup at that moment. I needed to go back home and understand what had happened. On the way, I remembered that power of attorney I had signed. A month after Robert's funeral, Jennifer showed up with a pile of documents. They are just formalities to organize the inheritance. Sign here, Mom, so I can handle everything for you. I, sunk in grief and blindly trusting my daughter, signed without reading. How naive I had been. When I reached the apartment, the one Jennifer called old, but where Robert and I had created memories for 40 years, I collapsed on the couch. Everything in that place carried his presence: the armchair where he read the newspaper every morning, the collection of naval history books he loved so much, and on the dresser, the photo of the day we bought the beach house in Miami Beach. We had saved for 15 years to have that little piece of paradise, a simple and charming cabin 2 blocks from the ocean. Every summer we went there. Robert built the back terrace with his own hands, and I tended a small hibiscus garden at the entrance. It was there that Jennifer celebrated her 16th birthday, received her first kiss, and introduced Mark to the family. And now all of that had disappeared in a text message, sold to finance the whim of an ungrateful daughter and her opportunistic husband. That night I couldn't sleep. I spent hours tossing in bed, remembering the past months, how Jennifer seemed so attentive after Robert's death, how she came to visit me 3 times a week, always asking about documents, accounts, assets. Now it all made sense. It wasn't concern, it was interest. She was calculating what she could take from me. In the morning, with my eyes swollen from crying so much, I made a decision. I would go to the bank to review my accounts. I needed to know what else Jennifer had done with that cursed power of attorney. The manager received me with an expression of pity that only increased my humiliation. "Mrs. Johnson, your daughter was here yesterday and withdrew practically all the money from the joint accounts. She presented the power of attorney and, legally, we couldn't prevent it. I'm very sorry." I left the bank devastated, but with a certainty growing inside me, I had to react. I couldn't allow Jennifer to destroy everything Robert and I had built over a lifetime. I went straight to a lawyer recommended by a neighbor. Mr. Thompson welcomed me kindly and listened attentively to my story. "The power of attorney you signed gives your daughter full authority. Unfortunately, from a legal standpoint, the sales are valid. But we could file a lawsuit claiming that you were misled, that you weren't properly explained what you were signing. And how long would that take, sir? And what are the chances?" I asked with a trembling voice. He sighed. "To be honest, Mrs. Johnson, these are long processes. They can last for years. And since it is your daughter and not a stranger, it is harder to prove bad faith." I left the office feeling the weight of my 68 years, those years I had dedicated to raising Jennifer with love and building a life alongside Robert. In old age, when I should be enjoying peace, I found myself betrayed, stripped, and abandoned by my only daughter. Walking slowly back home, something unexpected happened. Instead of giving in to despair, I felt a cold calm take hold of me. A determination I hadn't known before. Robert always said I was stronger than I thought. Maybe it was time to prove him right. When I entered the bedroom, I opened the wardrobe and began to search through all the boxes and drawers. Robert had been a methodical, organized man. If there was anything that could help me, it had to be kept somewhere. Then I remembered. 3 days before he died, Robert handed me a brown envelope. "Keep this in your jewelry box, Margaret. If you ever need it, it will be there, though I hope you never will." At that moment, confused by his failing health, I stored it away without asking questions. Later, overwhelmed by the shock of his sudden death, I completely forgot about it. I ran to the jewelry box, the one Jennifer apparently hadn't found. At the bottom, beneath necklaces and earrings I hardly ever wore, was the yellowed envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were documents and a handwritten letter from Robert. The first line made my heart race. "My beloved Margaret, if you are reading this, it means something has gone wrong. But don't worry, I always knew this day could come and I prepared to protect you." I sat on the edge of the bed with the envelope in my hands. Robert's handwriting, firm and precise, seemed to leap from the page straight into my heart. I kept reading line by line, discovering a side of Robert the first had never imagined. "Margaret, during our 43 years together, I learned many things. The most important is that you must always have a plan B. While everyone saw me as just a simple bank manager, I was quietly working to give you security. Our daughter Jennifer has always shown an excessive attachment to money and material things, which worried me. That's why I kept certain investments secret. The beach house and what everyone knows are only the surface." My heart pounded. Robert, who had always been so transparent with me, had kept secrets. But he had done so for a noble cause, to protect me. Over the years I bought 3 commercial properties in downtown New York City, all rented to stable companies. I invested in stocks of traditional firms. I opened accounts in 2 banks in your name, with codes only I knew. Everything is documented in the papers that accompany this letter. I began to review those documents, deeds, bank statements, rental contracts. It was a fortune I had never imagined owning. The most surprising, one of those properties was the very building where Jennifer and Mark lived. "Yes, my dear Margaret, we are the real owners of that luxury condo in Upper East Side, New York City. Mark had never known that his father-in-law was his landlord. I had to stop reading. The revelation was too overwhelming. Robert had bought the building where our daughter lived. I did it when they decided to move there, using a front company. I know Mark too well, his arrogance and his lies about high-risk investments. I saw how he negatively influenced our daughter, how she changed at his side. This is my last gift to you, Margaret, the power to choose. You can reveal everything now and take back control, or wait and see how far our daughter's ingratitude goes. The decision will be yours. The letter ended with detailed instructions on how to access the accounts, contacts of trusted lawyers, and a final sentence that made me smile through tears. Remember what I always told you, you are stronger than you think, my love. Much stronger. I spent hours reviewing the papers. By the most conservative estimates, I owned assets worth at least 5 times more than the Miami Beach house and the savings Jennifer had stolen. I was not a defenseless widow, I was a wealthy woman. That night I slept with a peace I hadn't felt since Robert's passing. The next day I dressed carefully, chose a discreet but elegant dress he had always loved, and went to the office of Mr. Rutkowski, one of the lawyers recommended in the letter. Unlike the younger Mr. Thompson I had consulted earlier, this was a man with gray hair and a sharp gaze. He listened to my whole story and reviewed the documents Robert had left. Mrs. Johnson, your husband was an extraordinarily intelligent man. He arranged everything impeccably. You are without doubt a woman with a great fortune. And yes, we can recover the beach house and the watch, but allow me to suggest a different path. I'm listening, sir. He smiled as he adjusted his glasses. Your daughter believes she has left you ruined. What if we let her go on thinking that for a while? Meanwhile, we discreetly take control of all your assets, especially the building where she lives. I understood immediately what he was suggesting. You mean let my daughter discover it in the hardest way possible? I suggest that your daughter learn a valuable lesson about consequences, Mrs. Johnson. Sometimes justice must be felt in order to be understood. I left the office with a plan in motion. Mr. Rutkowski would immediately begin the procedures to formally transfer the assets into my name. He would annul the power of attorney I had given Jennifer, arguing that I had signed it in a state of vulnerability, and most importantly, he would send an eviction notice to Jennifer and Mark as soon as they returned from their trip. During the following weeks I kept my usual routine. I went to the farmers' market, spoke with neighbors, attended my reading group at the public library. Everyone treated me with that compassion reserved for the elderly abandoned by their children. My situation was already well known in the neighborhood. Mrs. Carter, my lifelong neighbor, came by almost daily with unconvincing excuses to borrow sugar or show me pictures of her grandchildren. Margaret, have you spoken with Jennifer? She would ask. No, I haven't spoken with her. It's a shame what that girl did to you after everything you and Robert did for her. Selling the Miami Beach house just like that. And for what? To cruise around with that husband of hers who brags about being an investor. I smiled softly as I poured more tea. Life teaches, Mrs. Carter. One way or another, life always teaches. She looked at me puzzled, unable to understand my calm. How could she? No one knew my secret, Robert's letter and the documents now kept in Mr. Rutkowski's safe. At the end of the 3rd week, I received Jennifer's first call. Hi, Mom, how are you? As if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't sold our house or stolen our memories. I'm fine, Jennifer, I answered in a neutral voice, hiding the storm inside me. We're having a wonderful time. The cruise is amazing. Mark met some Canadian investors who are very interested in his projects. I think we're going to extend the trip a few more weeks. Good for you. There was a pause. My dry response caught her by surprise. Look, Mom, I know you were upset about the house and the watch, but it was for the best. You never even used that house. It was empty most of the year, and the watch was just sitting in a drawer. I took a deep breath. Every word was like a knife. That house was never empty, it was full of our memories, our hard work. And Robert's watch, how could she speak of it as if it were just another object? When are you coming back, Jennifer? Probably in a month. Why? Do you need something? I can have Marcia, my assistant, take care of it. No, honey, I just wanted to know. Enjoy your trip. I hung up, feeling a mixture of sadness and determination. This was not the daughter I had raised, or maybe it was, and I had simply refused to see the signs Robert, always more perceptive, had noticed. In the following weeks, Mr. Rutkowski called me daily with updates. Everything was proceeding as planned, the properties were already in my name, the accounts under my control, the power of attorney annulled, and Jennifer's building also legally mine. Everything is ready, Mrs. Johnson, he said. Once they return, they will receive the notice giving them 30 days to vacate the luxury condo in Upper East Side, New York City. Legally, there is nothing they can do. The company listed as the owner is now yours. You are under no obligation to keep undesirable tenants, especially not your own daughter. You have full moral and legal justification. Those words echoed in my mind, moral and legal. I had the right to do it. I had the power. But did I have the courage? One night I went into Jennifer's old room. I sat on her bed and took a picture from the shelf, Jennifer, at 5 years old, sitting on Robert's lap on the balcony of the Miami Beach house. Both were smiling, she with an ice cream melting in her hand, he with that look of pure love. What happened to that little girl, Robert? I asked the empty room. Where did we go wrong? At that moment my phone rang. It was Mr. Rutkowski. Mrs. Johnson, I just received information that your daughter and her husband return tomorrow. Tonight they are taking a flight from Lisbon to New York City. Then the time has come, sir. The time for truth, for justice, or for mercy. Send the notice. Are you sure, ma'am? Once the process starts. I'm sure. It's time my daughter learned that every action has consequences. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed on the balcony of the apartment, watching the city lights, imagining the plane bringing Jennifer back, carrying her closer to the moment that would change our lives forever. I remembered the day she was born, how Robert cried when he held her for the first time, swearing he would be the best father in the world. We did everything possible to give her the best. We were not wealthy, Robert's secret fortune came much later. At that time, we were just a middle-class family with simple dreams and firm values, or at least, that's what I believed. At 9 in the morning I received a message from Mr. Rutkowski. Notice delivered at the condo. The doorman confirmed the couple arrived an hour ago. My heart raced. Now it was only a matter of time. I made coffee, dressed carefully, not like a defenseless widow but like a businesswoman, and waited. I knew Jennifer would arrive furious. And she didn't take long. At 11:30 the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I saw my daughter with deep dark circles from the trip, her hair disheveled, and a crumpled paper in her hand. Behind her was Mark, equally exhausted and angry. What is the meaning of this? Jennifer shoved the notice against my chest. Is this some kind of sick joke? Good morning to you too, Jennifer. Come in, let's talk like adults. They entered. Mark looked around as if it were his first time there. Jennifer threw her designer bag on the couch, a Louis Vuitton that surely cost what Robert earned in 3 months at the beginning of our life together. There's nothing to discuss. We came back exhausted and found this madness, an eviction order from our own luxury condo in Upper East Side, New York City. And worst of all, it says you are the owner. I sat calmly in Robert's favorite armchair. It's not a joke or madness. It's the truth. I am the owner of the building where you live. Mark stepped forward, pointing his finger at me. This is ridiculous. We bought that apartment 3 years ago. I have all the papers. You bought the right to long-term use. The ownership of the luxury condo in Upper East Side, New York City always belonged to Northern Investments Incorporated, which was Robert's and now is mine. Jennifer's face turned pale. Mark couldn't believe what he was hearing. This doesn't make sense, Jennifer stammered. Dad was just a bank manager. How could he own the building? Your father was much more than you imagined. He was smart, far-sighted, and knew very well the daughter he had. Jennifer collapsed on the couch, looking more fragile than I had ever seen her. Why didn't he ever tell us? Because he knew exactly what you would do with that information. And he wasn't wrong, was he? Mark, always so arrogant, now looked like a scared boy. This can't be legal. We'll fight it. I smiled calmly, a smile without joy. Rest assured. Mr. Rakowski has everything in order. Every cent, every contract, everything absolutely legal and verifiable. Mr. Rakowski? Jennifer asked in astonishment. Yes, your lawyer, the same one now in charge of recovering the Miami Beach house and your father's watch. What do you mean, recovering? Her eyes widened. The sale you made was annulled. The power you had me sign in the middle of my grief was invalidated. The house is already back in my name. The watch, unfortunately, you sold it to someone who took it out of the country. We are trying to trace it. Mark ran a hand through his hair, nervous. This is madness. No, madness was what you two did, stealing from a widow the little she thought she still had. That was cruelty. Jennifer began to cry, but I was unmoved. I knew those tears, they were the same ones she shed when she wanted a new car, when she argued with a friend, or when they needed money for one of Mark's so-called opportunities. They were tears of convenience. Mom, I'm sorry. It was a mistake. We were desperate. Mark had a unique chance on the cruise, meeting investors who could change our lives. And how did that great deal turn out? I asked, already knowing the answer. It wasn't what we expected, she murmured, avoiding my eyes. It never is, right, Mark? Big promises, high-risk investments. Robert tried to warn you so many times. Jennifer looked at me pleadingly. If Dad had so much money, if now you are so wealthy, why are you doing this to us? Why can't you just help us? We're family. Her words hit me like a slap. Family? Did you remember that word when you sold the house your father built with sacrifice? When you kept the watch he wore for 40 years and intended to give you for your birthday? When you emptied my accounts, leaving me not knowing how I would pay the next month? Jennifer lowered her head. Mark stepped forward. Mrs. Johnson, we admit we were wrong. But this eviction is too much. Where are we supposed to live? And where would I be if you had gotten what you wanted? Did you think about that before stealing from me? The silence was answer enough. You have 30 days to find another place. And if you want to challenge my decision, Jennifer, go ahead. But remember, while the trial drags on, I can also change my will. Right now you are my only heir, but that can be modified. I saw fear grow in her eyes. She had always been practical and ambitious. She understood the threat. Mom, please, she came closer, trying to take my hands. Don't leave us out on the street. You won't be out on the street. You have money, the money you stole from me with the sale of the house and the watch. Use it to rent something more modest. The conversation is over. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an appointment. There was no appointment, but I needed them to leave. Seeing my daughter reduced to begging did not bring the satisfaction I expected. I only felt emptiness, a profound sadness at what we had become. When the door closed behind them, I sank into Robert's armchair and cried. I wasn't crying for myself or for Jennifer. I cried for the broken dream of family, for the illusion I had fed for decades. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Mr. Rakowski. Mrs. Johnson, everything is in order. Your daughter has already received the notice. Yes, sir. She and Mark just left here. And how do you feel? I thought for a moment before answering. At peace, sir. Not happy, not satisfied. Just at peace for having done what I had to do. I understand. And regarding the other matters, the Miami Beach house is once again in your name. Would you like to visit it this week? The image of our house, that refuge where Robert planted rosebushes, where we celebrated so many Christmases, where we had planned to grow old together, filled my eyes with tears. Yes, I'd like to go tomorrow, if possible. Mrs. Johnson, I'll send a car to take you. After hanging up, I looked at Robert's picture on the wall. He was smiling with that serene look, as if he always knew more than he said. You were right, I whispered softly. Right about her, about Mark, about the importance of having a plan B. I hope you are also right in thinking I will be strong enough to go on. That night I slept deeply for the first time in months. The next morning, a car sent by Mr. Rutkowski picked me up early to take me to Miami Beach. When I arrived, there it was, just as I remembered, a blue wooden cabin with white windows, a small garden at the entrance, now a bit neglected, and in the back, the vast view of the ocean. A knot formed in my throat as I walked along the stone path Robert had fixed during our third summer there. The key turned with difficulty, and when I opened the door, the familiar scent of salt and wood wrapped around me. I ran my hand along the wall, recognizing the texture of the wallpaper we had put up together. I slowly toured every corner. In the living room were still the pencil marks where we measured Jennifer's height each summer. In the kitchen, the table where Robert had coffee while looking at the ocean, even on cloudy days. In the main bedroom, the bed covered with the sheet he always spread before closing the house for long periods. I went out to the back terrace, the one Robert had built so carefully. The boards creaked beneath my feet, some already needed repair. I sat in the rocking chair and gazed at the horizon. At that moment I felt him closer than ever since his death. What should I do? I murmured to the wind. She's still our daughter, despite everything. I spent the day cleaning, arranging, and reconnecting with every corner of the house. By sunset, I realized I didn't want to leave. I called Mr. Rutkowski and asked him to send the car only the next day. There were clean sheets in the closets and basic provisions in the pantry, as we had always left. That night, sleeping there was like a ritual of healing. I rested in our bed and dreamed of Robert. In the dream, I saw him on the terrace fixing a loose board. Did you always know this would happen? I asked. I didn't know, but I suspected, he replied without looking at me, focused on his work. Mark always had that ambitious look, and Jennifer always looked for shortcuts. And what do I do now? I pressed. He raised his head and gave me that smile I loved so much. Do what your heart tells you. You were always the moral compass of our family. I only built the structure, you gave it direction. I woke up with the sun coming through the blinds. For a moment I thought everything had been a nightmare, Robert's death, Jennifer's betrayal, the eviction. But reality returned quickly. I made a simple cup of coffee and sat on the terrace. There I made my decision. Jennifer needed to learn a lesson, but I didn't want to lose her forever. She was still my daughter, even after everything. When the car arrived, I already had a different plan in mind. Back in New York City, I went straight to Mr. Rutkowski's office. He greeted me with his usual seriousness, though I noticed his curiosity at seeing my determined expression. Sir, I want to make some changes to our plan. What kind of changes, Mrs. Johnson? We will continue with the eviction, but I want to offer Jennifer and Mark an alternative. What kind of alternative? A smaller apartment, without luxuries or comforts, in one of the other buildings I own. A decent place, but simple, with clear conditions. The lawyer leaned forward, interested. What conditions? Mark will have to get a real job, no risky deals. An honest job with a fixed salary. And Jennifer will have to work as a volunteer in a charity I choose, at least 3 days a week. The lawyer smiled faintly. You don't just want to punish them, Mrs. Johnson, you want to re-educate them. Exactly. Robert and I failed in something. We gave Jennifer everything without teaching her the value of work and sacrifice. Maybe it's not too late to correct that. And if they refuse? I took a deep breath. Then they can continue with the money they took from me. It will last them a few months, then they will have to fend for themselves. Mr. Rutkowski took notes. When do you want to present this proposal to them? Tomorrow, as soon as possible. I left the office feeling lighter. My decision was not born of revenge, but of love. A tougher, more demanding love, but still love. On the way home I passed a jewelry store. In the window I saw a watch similar to Robert's. It wasn't the same, it never would be, but it was similar. I went in and bought it, not to replace the original, which I still hope to recover, but as a symbol, time, that precious resource that doesn't return, but that we can use better. When I arrived home, I found 3 messages from Jennifer, each more desperate than the last. In the final one she begged to see me, saying she regretted everything, that she had made the worst mistake of her life. I called her. Her voice was broken from so much crying. "Mom, can we talk? I'm desperate. Mark and I had a huge fight. He says he's going back to his mother's house. I don't know what to do. Come tomorrow at 10 in the morning. And bring Mark if he agrees. I have a proposal for you both." "What proposal?" "You'll know tomorrow, Jennifer. At 10. I hung up with my heart divided between anxiety and hope. Part of me wanted to believe there was still salvation for my daughter, another part feared I was only prolonging the inevitable. That night I placed the new watch on the nightstand next to Robert's picture. "We'll see if you were right about our daughter," I whispered to his image. "You always trusted there was goodness in her, even when I doubted." At 10:05 the next morning, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and found Jennifer alone. Her appearance was desolate, no makeup, messy hair, swollen eyes. She wore a plain t-shirt and jeans, a total contrast to the designer clothes she once flaunted. "Mark didn't come?" I asked, letting her inside. "No. He said he won't beg anyone. He left last night for his mother's house." Jennifer dropped onto the couch, smaller and more fragile than ever. For a moment I thought I saw the little girl who used to run into my arms when she was hurt. I shook my head, I couldn't let nostalgia carry me away. "You mentioned a proposal," she said with a trembling voice. I sat across from her. "Yes. But first I need to understand something." "Why, Jennifer? Why did you do this to me? I'm your mother. I always gave you everything I could." She lowered her eyes, nervously playing with her hands. "I don't know how to explain it, Mom. It all happened little by little. Mark said we needed the money for important investments, that it would be temporary, that we would give it all back to you later. And you believed him?" I wanted to believe. He was always convincing. From the moment I met him, he showed me that life of luxury, of supposed opportunities. I let myself be carried away. And the Miami Beach house? And your father's watch? How could you sell things with so much sentimental value? A tear ran down her cheek. I convinced myself they were just things, that what mattered were the memories. Mark said you hardly used the house and that the watch just stayed in a drawer. I know now it sounds awful. Yes, it sounds awful because it is, Jennifer. You stole everything you thought I had. If your father hadn't left me that envelope, would be completely defenseless. She shrank, as if she had been struck. I know. I have no justification. I can only say I'm sorry, deeply sorry. I studied her for a long while, trying to discern whether that regret was genuine or simply the result of losing her life of luxury. My proposal is the following, I finally said. The eviction still stands. You have 30 days to leave that apartment, as already notified. She nodded with resignation. But I am willing to offer you a smaller apartment in another of the buildings I own. It will be a decent place, but without luxuries. Her eyes lit up immediately. Really, Mom? Yes, but with conditions. What conditions? Mark will have to get a real job. No shady investments or supposed business opportunities. An honest job, with a contract and a fixed salary. She bit her lip. I don't know if he'll agree to that. That's his problem. Right now, I'm talking to you. And what am I supposed to do? You will work as a volunteer, 3 days a week, at Hope House, a senior home. She looked puzzled. Exactly, I continued. There you'll see what it means for an older person to feel abandoned. There you'll understand what you nearly did to me. Jennifer lowered her head in shame. For how long? For now, indefinitely. Later we'll evaluate how you fulfill it and how seriously you take it. She nodded slowly. And the money you took from the house and the watch, you'll need that to live on. The apartment I'm offering is just a roof. Food, bills, every other expense will be your responsibility. If Mark doesn't accept, then you will have to work. I saw fear in her eyes. Jennifer had never truly worked. She had always lived on the allowance Robert gave her, and later on the money Mark obtained by borrowing for his shady deals. And if Mark refuses these conditions? Then you'll have to decide, Jennifer, your husband or your redemption. She swallowed hard. Can I think about it a little? Of course. You have until the weekend to give me an answer. When she got up to leave, she seemed to carry the weight of the world. At the door she turned to me. Mom. Dad's watch. Mark sold it to an American collector we met on the cruise. I have his contact information. Maybe we can recover it. Thank you for telling me, I replied, seeing in her a small glimmer of the daughter I once knew. After she left, I called Mr. Rutkowski and told him about our conversation. He approved of my idea but warned me. Mrs. Johnson, it will be necessary to put everything in writing if she agrees. And be prepared for her not to keep the agreement, or to abandon it later. I'm prepared, sir. I no longer have illusions about my daughter, only hope. The following days were filled with tense waiting. I had no news from Jennifer, which didn't surprise me. She was probably trying to convince Mark or considering other options. To distract myself, I focused on planning repairs at the Miami Beach house. The terrace needed urgent work, the roof had loose tiles, and the garden was neglected. I hired a specialized company and personally supervised the start of the work. While the workers assessed what needed to be done, I walked along the beach. It was Monday and out of season, so it was almost empty. I walked as far as my legs would allow, feeling the soft sand beneath my feet and the salty wind on my face. At one moment I found myself smiling, a genuine smile, the first since Robert's death. Perhaps it was indeed possible to rebuild my life, even without my companion of 4 decades. Maybe there were good things waiting for me. And maybe, just maybe, my daughter could still be part of that new stage. On Wednesday I received a call from Jennifer. Mom, I've decided to accept your proposal. Mark, she paused. He wants nothing to do with it. He said he'll never work in what he called menial jobs. That's how he put it. He has an uncle in Chicago who offered to make him a partner in a business, and he's leaving with him. And you? I'm staying. I want to make things right, Mom. I know it will take time, that you won't trust me immediately, but I want to try. We agreed to meet at Mr. Rutkowski's office to formalize the agreement. The next day, Jennifer arrived on time, dressed simply but neatly, without her old excesses. Mr. Rutkowski read the terms. She would have the right to occupy a 2-bedroom apartment in the building on Palmer Street, rent-free but covering all expenses. She would have to volunteer at least 12 hours a week at Hope House and look for paid employment within 60 days. Any violation would mean immediate eviction. I understand and accept, she said, signing the documents. Then I accompanied her to see her new apartment. It was simple but cozy, much smaller than the luxurious one she had lived in. It has parking. But you don't have a car anymore, right? No. Mark took it. It was in his name. Then you'll use public transportation. Yes, she answered with a resigned gesture. As we walked in, she looked around with an expression hard to read. It wasn't sadness or disappointment, perhaps it was simply the realization of her new reality. It's small, but it has what you need, I commented as I opened the windows. The basic furniture is already here. The refrigerator is new. It's perfect, Mom. Thank you. You can move in whenever you want. Here are the keys. As we were leaving, she stopped at the door. Mom, will you ever truly forgive me? Not just give me another chance, but trust me again? The question caught me by surprise. I don't know, Jennifer. Trust is like a glass vase. When it breaks, even if you repair it, cracks always remain. She swallowed and nodded. I understand. But I'm going to try, because you're my mother. And I'm very sorry for everything. In the following days I watched her from afar as she moved in. It was strange to see her carrying her own boxes, without staff from the luxury building, without Mark. A 43-year-old woman starting almost from scratch. Her first day as a volunteer at Hope House was a Monday. We agreed to meet there so I could introduce her to Ms. Davis, the director and a longtime friend. Jennifer will work here 3 times a week, I explained. She can help wherever she's needed most. Ms. Davis, who already knew the story, looked at her seriously. We have plenty of work in the recreation area. Some seniors haven't had visitors in years and need company. I can do that, Jennifer replied firmly, seeming genuinely interested. I watched her walk through the halls with Ms. Davis, meeting the residents. And I noticed how some of them looked at her with hope, another person who might care about them, who might remember their names the next time. I left with mixed feelings. Part of me wanted to believe in Jennifer's redemption, to think she had truly understood the lesson and that it was possible to rebuild our relationship. Another part remained skeptical, fearing she would grow tired of the simple life, the rules, and the volunteer work. A month after our agreement, I received a call from Miss Davis. Margaret, I wanted to tell you something about your daughter. My heart skipped. I thought of problems, of her having given up. What happened, Ms. Davis? Mr. Miller, the elderly man with Alzheimer's who hardly speaks to anyone, had a crisis yesterday. He began shouting and getting agitated. The nurses couldn't calm him. Do you know who managed to? Jennifer. How? She sat by his side, took his hand, and began singing a lullaby softly. Within minutes he was calm. Later we learned that song was the same one his mother used to sing to him as a child. He had mentioned it to Jennifer weeks earlier in a moment of lucidity, and she remembered. I was silent, processing what I heard. Margaret, I don't know what happened between you two, and I don't need to know. But I must tell you something, your daughter has a gift with the elderly. She truly listens, and she cares. After hanging up, I couldn't stop thinking about this new Jennifer emerging, the one who remembered details from a sick man's childhood, who sang lullabies to calm him, who even volunteered 1 more day a week. I decided to visit her at her new apartment. Although she had given me a copy of the key for emergencies, I preferred to ring the bell. When she opened the door, I noticed something different. It wasn't just the absence of expensive clothes or makeup. It was her posture, her gaze, calmer, more centered. Mom, what a wonderful surprise, she said, hugging me spontaneously, something she hadn't done in years. The apartment was spotless. On the living room wall, something caught my eye, photos of Hope House residents in small frames. They're my friends, she explained, noticing my glance. I wanted to have them close, to remind myself why I'm doing this. In the kitchen I saw basic cookbooks open, with notes scribbled in the margins. I'm learning to cook, she said, a bit embarrassed. Before I never needed to. Mark always wanted to eat out in fancy restaurants. But now I have to save. We talked for hours. She told me about her work at the senior home, about her job search, about how she tried to save the little she had left from selling the house. Most of the money was taken by Mark, she admitted. He withdrew almost everything before leaving for Chicago for that business with his uncle. I was left with less than a third. And how do you feel about that? I asked sincerely. Relieved. Mark was toxic, Mom. I didn't see it before. Before leaving, I noticed an open notebook on the table with a list of names and numbers. What's this? She blushed. It's a restitution plan. I'm calculating how much I owe you for Dad's watch and for the house. But you don't have that money, honey. Not now. But I will. I'm saving everything I can, and once I get a job, I'll set aside part of my salary every month. I left with my mind full of thoughts. This was not the Jennifer I had known. Or maybe it was, the real one, emerging after years in Mark's shadow and an artificial life. In the months that followed, I witnessed her transformation. She got a job as a receptionist at a medical clinic. A simple job, with a modest salary, but one she embraced enthusiastically. "It's a start," she told me. "And the clinic is close to Hope House, so I can keep volunteering in my free time." Meanwhile, at home I began organizing Robert's belongings, not to get rid of them, but to preserve them better. That was when I found an envelope at the bottom of a box of documents. It said, "To be opened when our daughter finds her path." With trembling hands, I opened it. "My dear Margaret. If you are reading this, it means Jennifer has finally found her way. I don't know how it happened or how long it took. Maybe it was easy, maybe it required pain, but I am happy. Our daughter always had a good heart, buried under layers of materialism and bad influences, but it was there. I saw glimpses of it, when she cared for you during that pneumonia, when she defended a classmate who was bullied, when she cried after seeing an abandoned dog on the road. The world tried to harden her. We, unintentionally, spoiled her too much. Then came Mark, who valued only material things. But true character cannot be hidden forever. Inside this envelope you will also find my last gift for the two of you, the deed to a small piece of land next to our Miami Beach house. I bought it secretly years ago, thinking of expanding the house someday. Now I believe it can serve a better purpose. Build something new there, Margaret, together with our daughter. It doesn't matter what, an inn, a new house, even a shelter for seniors without family. What matters is that you build it together, brick by brick, decision by decision. Leave the past behind and create something that will be a symbol of a new beginning. With eternal love, Robert. Inside the envelope was, just as promised, the deed to the piece of land next to our Miami Beach house. A plot of earth waiting to have meaning. I sat for hours with that letter in my hands. Robert, even in his absence, was still guiding our lives, still believing in redemption and new beginnings. Could it be possible? Jennifer and I building something together, leaving the pain behind? The next day I invited her to lunch. I chose a simple restaurant near her job. She arrived on time, wearing her clinic uniform, a white blouse and black pants. "Is everything okay, Mom?" "Did something happen?" she asked, concerned by the unexpected invitation. "I found something yesterday," I explained, handing her Robert's letter. "Your father left this for us." I watched as she read it, seeing surprise, emotion, regret, and finally hope appear on her face. "Dad, he really believed in me," she whispered in a trembling voice. "Even knowing everything, your father always had more faith in people than I did," I admitted. "And especially in you." "And what do you think of his idea? Building something together?" I looked at my daughter. Not the cold woman who had betrayed me, but this new person emerging from the ashes of her old self. A woman who worked honestly, who cared for abandoned seniors, who sought to repair her mistakes. "I think it's exactly what we need," I finally answered. "A project that brings us together, that forces us to trust one another again." "And what could we build?" "I don't know. Maybe we could start by visiting the land this weekend, see the space, and think about the possibilities." The smile that lit her face reminded me of the Jennifer from many years ago, the little girl who ran through the Miami Beach house, who built sandcastles with her father, who dreamed of becoming a veterinarian to care for every abandoned animal in the world. "I'd love that, Mom. More than you can imagine." That weekend we went together to the beach house. The cabin was already fully renovated thanks to the work I had arranged. The terrace was sturdy again, the roof no longer leaked, and the front garden had been replanted with the same flowers Robert had loved so much. "It's so beautiful, Mom," Jennifer said as we walked through the garden. "Exactly as I remembered it from my childhood." Afterward we walked over to the neighboring lot. It was small but well located, with a partial view of the ocean and a flat area perfect for building. "What do you think we could do here?" I asked, watching Jennifer wander through the place, examining every corner like a child exploring new territory. She stayed quiet for a few minutes, looking around thoughtfully, and then turned to me with eyes shining in a way I hadn't seen in years. What if we build a small support house for seniors? A place where the residents of Hope House could spend weekends or vacations. Many of them have never seen the ocean. Mom, imagine Mr. Miller sitting on that terrace, looking out at the sea. Her proposal surprised me. I had expected her to suggest something commercial, an inn, or rental houses for the season, something that would generate income. But her idea was entirely altruistic. It would be a big investment, with no financial return, I commented, testing her. I know, she answered without hesitation. But the return would be of another kind. I could help with my salary. It would take time, but we'd do it little by little. I looked at her closely. I saw what I had forgotten to see for so long, the goodness Robert always said was inside her. We'll do it, I decided. But not little by little. I have enough resources. We'll design and build something properly, with everything the seniors need. Would you really do that, Mom? We'll do it together, I corrected her, just as your father wanted. In the following weeks, we met with architects, engineers, and specialists in senior care. Jennifer used her free days to attend meetings, always bringing ideas and suggestions based on her experience with Hope House residents. We need handrails in all the hallways, she insisted, and non-slip floors. Mrs. Brown has already fallen twice in the bathroom at the home. It was fascinating to see her so involved, so committed to a project that would bring her no material benefit. This was a Jennifer I had never seen, or perhaps she had always been there, hidden beneath years of distorted values. As the project advanced, so did our relationship. Little by little the wounds began to heal. Not completely, because some scars would always remain, but enough to build something new. One afternoon, while we were reviewing plans in her apartment, Jennifer surprised me with a question. Mom, do you think you'll ever truly trust me again? I put down what I was doing and looked her in the eyes. It was the same question she had asked me months earlier when she moved into the new apartment. I'm starting to trust, I answered honestly. It's not something that happens overnight. You broke something very deep between us. I know, she nodded, her eyes full of tears. And I regret it every day. Every time I see Mrs. Wilson at Hope House waiting for a visit from children who never come, I think, I almost did the same to my own mother. But you didn't entirely, I pointed out. No, and now we're here trying to rebuild. Thanks to you, who gave me another chance, and thanks to Dad, who never stopped believing in me. She smiled through her tears. Sometimes I think he knew this would happen, that I would have to hit bottom to find my way back. Your father always saw further than the rest of us. 6 months after the project began, the small support house was already taking shape. We named it Robert's Haven, in honor of the man who, even after his passing, continued to unite our family. The refuge had 6 adapted rooms, a spacious common room with a view of the ocean, a community kitchen, and a terrace connected to the main house. Every detail had been carefully planned for the comfort and safety of the seniors. When will we be able to bring the first guests? Jennifer asked eagerly on every visit. Patience, I replied. We want everything to be perfect. While the haven was being built, Jennifer continued with her personal transformation. She received a promotion at the clinic, taking on an administrative position with a better salary. She kept volunteering, now coordinating a reading program for seniors with vision problems. And, to my surprise, she began preparing for the medical school entrance exam. I always wanted to work in healthcare, she confessed. But Mark said it was a waste of time, that I was too old to study. It's never too late to start again, I answered, proud of her decision. During one of my visits to Hope House, Ms. Davis called me aside to speak privately. Margaret, I don't know what happened between you and your daughter, and I don't want to know. But I have to tell you something, Jennifer has saved lives here. How so? Not literally, of course, but in the area where she works, the seniors were depressed. Many refused to eat or take their medicine. Since she started with the reading program and memory activities, everything changed. Now they look forward to her visits, they feel hope. I left with my heart overflowing. Jennifer was no longer just fulfilling an obligation or paying a debt, she had found a true calling. When Robert's Haven was finished, we organized a small inauguration ceremony. We invited the first 6 seniors from Hope House, selected by Jennifer and Miss Davis. Among them was Mr. Miller, the man with Alzheimer's whom Jennifer had once calmed by singing a lullaby. That day he was lucid and, holding my daughter's hand, he admired the room assigned to him in wonder. "It's like a luxury hotel," he repeated, fascinated by the ocean view. I watched the scene from the balcony and felt a presence beside me. It wasn't anything supernatural, just the strong sensation that Robert was there, witnessing the result of his last gift. "He would be proud," Jennifer said, joining me after settling Mr. Miller. "Yes, he would," I nodded. "Proud of both of us." She came closer and hugged me tightly. It was a sincere embrace, full of all the words still too hard to say. "Thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me." Family doesn't give up, Jennifer, even when it hurts. That night we stayed in the main house while Miss Davis and a nurse looked after the seniors at the Haven. We sat on the terrace, as we had so many times with Robert, gazing at the stars. "Do you know what hurts the most?" Jennifer said suddenly. "That I'll never be able to give you back Dad's watch. It meant so much to him, to both of you." I hesitated for a moment, then pulled from my pocket the watch I had bought months earlier, so similar to Robert's. "It's not the same," I explained, "but it helps me feel he's still near in some way." Jennifer held the watch carefully, examining every detail. "It's almost identical." "Yes. And you know something? It's not the watch itself that matters, but the memories it holds." She nodded, handing it back. "Memories can't be sold or taken away." "Exactly." A comfortable silence settled between us, accompanied only by the sound of the waves breaking on the shore. I looked at my daughter, illuminated by the moonlight, and I saw not just the little girl I had raised or the woman who betrayed me, but the complex person she was, capable of terrible mistakes and extraordinary redemption. "Mom," she said at last, "I still have a long way to go, don't I?" "We all do, honey. Life is a constant new beginning." A year had passed since the inauguration of Robert's Haven. What began as a small support house for seniors had expanded, not in size, but in purpose. The Haven now received groups every 2 weeks, allowing more residents of Hope House to enjoy the ocean, even if only for a few days. Jennifer had taken charge of coordinating the project, combining that volunteer work with her job at the clinic and her nursing studies. It wasn't easy, many times I found her asleep over her books, exhausted, but with a light in her eyes that money could never buy. As for me, I also found a new purpose. Mr. Rakowski convinced me to use part of the resources Robert had left to create a small foundation dedicated to helping seniors with limited means. The Robert Johnson Fund financed medical treatments, home renovations to make living spaces safer, and even small dreams, like Mrs. Wilson's trip, at 92 years old, to see her hometown in Arizona again after 6 decades. One Sunday morning, while we had coffee on the balcony of the Miami Beach house, Jennifer handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked, intrigued. "Open it." Inside was a check and a handwritten letter. I looked at her, not understanding. "It's the first payment," she explained, "of the restitution I promised to make." The letter detailed how she had calculated the value of the beach house and Robert's watch, and how she planned to repay everything in monthly installments over the next few years. That check was the first payment, the result of strict savings and a bonus she had received at work. "Jennifer, this isn't necessary." "Yes, it is, Mom. For me it's not about the money, it's about keeping my word, about repairing what I did." I stared at the check for a long time. "And what do you want me to do with this?" "It's yours. Use it however you want." "I have an idea. What if we put it toward the Haven, to build that access ramp to the beach we've been planning?" Her eyes lit up. Perfect. That simple transaction meant so much. It wasn't just money changing hands, it was trust being rebuilt, promises being kept, wounds healing. That very afternoon we had an unexpected visitor. A car pulled up at the entrance, and from it stepped a figure we hadn't seen in more than a year. It was Mark. He looked different, thinner, with a grown beard, dressed in simple clothes instead of the expensive suits he used to wear. He hesitated at the entrance, uneasy. Jennifer, who was in the garden, saw him first. Her expression was not anger or resentment, as I had expected, but cautious curiosity. "What are you doing here, Mark?" she asked. He moved forward a few steps, hesitant. "I need to talk to you. It's important." Jennifer glanced at me. I was watching from the balcony. "We can use the back terrace," she told him. I stayed in the living room, trying not to listen, though worried about the effect this visit would have on my daughter. After everything she had accomplished, the last thing she needed was for Mark to reappear and unsettle her. The conversation lasted almost an hour. When they returned, Mark looked shaken, while Jennifer was surprisingly calm. "He came to say goodbye," she explained. "He's moving to London. He found a job with a tourism company there." Mark greeted me awkwardly, unable to look me in the eye. "Mrs. Johnson, I wanted to apologize for what we did. I know it's not enough, but—" "No, it's not enough," I answered seriously. "But it's a start. I also came for another reason," he continued, pulling a small package from his pocket. "I managed to recover this." I opened the package with trembling hands. It was Robert's watch. Worn, with the glass a bit scratched, but unmistakable, the same one he had worn for decades. "How?" was all I could manage to say. The American who bought it happened to be staying at the same hotel as me in London. It was pure chance. At first he refused, but when I told him the story and its sentimental value, he finally agreed to return it. I stared at the watch, feeling its familiar weight in my hands. "Thank you," I said sincerely. "It's the least I could do," Mark replied, visibly ashamed. "Well, I must go. My flight leaves early tomorrow." Jennifer walked him to the car. I watched them talk a bit more and then, surprisingly, share a brief hug before he left. When she returned, her eyes were wet but her expression serene. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Yes," she said firmly. "It feels like closing a chapter. Mark has changed. The business with his uncle failed, he lost everything, and he had to start over from scratch. I think it made him reflect." "People can change," I commented, looking at her intently. "Yes, they can," she replied with a smile. "Some need to lose everything to find the best in themselves." That night I placed Robert's watch back on the nightstand. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at it for a long time, remembering every moment I had seen my husband check it, the day Jennifer was born, our anniversaries, when we bought the beach house, our last morning together. "Everything is fine now, Robert," I whispered. "Our daughter has found her path, and so have I." In the months that followed, our lives found a harmonious rhythm. I divided my time between the apartment in the city and the Miami beach house, overseeing the foundation and helping with the haven. Jennifer continued with her triple workload, job, studies, and volunteering, but with a light in her eyes that spoke of purpose. Robert's haven gained recognition in the region. A local newspaper published a feature about our work, showing how a family project had become an oasis for seniors who rarely had the chance to see the ocean. The article brought visibility, donations, and new volunteers. One afternoon, while we were organizing Mrs. Brown's birthday party, one of the regular residents, Jennifer, surprised me with another idea. "Mom, I've been thinking. What if we expand the project? Not physically, but in concept." "What do you mean?" "There are so many seniors who have no contact with their grandchildren, and so many children in shelters without grandparents. We could create a kind of mutual adoption." The idea was brilliant in its simplicity. Within weeks we contacted a children's shelter in Florida and began a pilot program. The transformation was immediate and profound. Seniors who hardly spoke now told stories with enthusiasm to their heart grandchildren. Children who rarely smiled now ran happily into the arms of their adoptive grandparents. On one of those visits, I watched Jennifer sitting in the sand with Mr. Miller and a 5-year-old girl named Emily. The three of them built a sandcastle, laughing each time the waves came too close. It was a scene I never could have imagined 2 years earlier. My daughter, who once sold the Miami Beach house without a second thought, now spent her free days bringing joy to an elderly man with Alzheimer's and a little orphan girl. She was born for this, Ms. Davis commented beside me. To care, to bring people together. I've never met anyone with such a natural gift. Neither have I answered, moved. And to think we almost lost all this. One day, returning from the market, I found Jennifer sitting on the terrace of the main house, gazing thoughtfully at the ocean. I sat next to her in silence, respecting that moment of introspection. "Do you know what I was thinking about?" she asked finally. "What?" "How life turns around. 2 years ago, I sold this house to finance a luxury cruise, without thinking of you, without thinking of anything but my own pleasure. And now I can't imagine a more valuable place in the world." I took her hand and squeezed it gently. "What matters is where we are today, not where we've been." "Yes, but I don't forget the past. It reminds me of the person I don't want to be again." "The past is for that, my daughter, to teach us, to shape us, but it must not imprison us." She nodded, reflecting on my words. "Mom, can I ask you something I've always wanted to know?" "Of course." "That day you discovered I had sold the house and the watch, how did you really feel? Not just anger or betrayal, I mean, what else?" It was a hard question, one that took me back to that moment in the doctor's office. I felt like I had failed, I confessed. As a mother, as a guide. I asked myself where I had gone wrong to raise someone capable of doing that. That was the deepest pain. Silent tears rolled down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Mom. Every single day I'm sorry. I know, honey. And every day I forgive you a little more." We stayed in silence, watching the sun set, coloring the sky in shades of orange. From Robert's Haven came laughter, seniors and children playing dominoes on the balcony under the eyes of the volunteers. "Do you know what Dad would say now?" Jennifer asked with a timid smile. "What?" "I told you everything would turn out fine in the end." I laughed, because it was exactly what Robert used to repeat, that optimistic phrase that sometimes irritated me, but almost always turned out to be true. "I think he's watching us right now," I added with a knowing look. We laughed together, feeling Robert between us, not as a ghost or a painful memory, but as a force that still united us, a living legacy enduring in our actions. That night, after Mrs. Brown's party at the Haven, I stayed alone on the balcony, watching the lights of ships in the distance. I pulled Robert's watch from my pocket, which I now carried as a talisman. "You were right, my love," I whispered. About our daughter, about life, about new beginnings. For the first time since his passing, I felt complete peace. Not mere resignation to loss, but the certainty that his love and wisdom were still alive in us, in Robert's Haven, in our daughter's transformation, and in my own rebirth as a stronger, wiser woman. The next day, when Jennifer arrived for breakfast, she carried a folder of documents. "What's this?" I asked curiously. "My application to the residency program in geriatrics," she answered with a mix of nervousness and determination. "After graduating from nursing school, I want to specialize in elderly care." I looked at her with immense pride. That was Robert's true inheritance, not money or properties, but the values that had finally bloomed in our daughter. "Your father would be so proud," I said, my voice trembling. "I know," she smiled. "And you, Mom, are you proud too?" "More than you can imagine." Time passed, as it always does, transforming people and situations. 3 years had gone by since that breakfast. Today, at 74, I look back and hardly recognize the road traveled. What began as a betrayal became a journey of redemption that touched not only our lives but also those of dozens of people around us. Robert's Haven grew beyond all expectations. With support from the foundation and new donations after the feature in the local press, we managed to buy the neighboring land and expand the facilities. We went from 6 rooms to 12, all adapted to the needs of seniors. The program that united seniors with children became a national model. Social workers, psychologists, and even representatives from the Department of Health came to understand how such a simple idea could have such a deep impact on the lives of both groups. Jennifer graduated from medical school with honors and earned a place in the medical residency in geriatrics she had long desired. She balanced her studies with work at the Haven, often spending sleepless nights, but always with a light of purpose in her eyes. From Mark, we received occasional news. He had settled in London, working for a tourism company. According to his emails to Jennifer, he lived a modest but honest life. He had met a British woman, and they were engaged. It seemed he, too, had found his path to redemption. One Sunday afternoon, during Mr. Miller's 90th birthday celebration, against all medical predictions, had improved since coming to the Haven, I received a call from Mr. Rutkowski. "Mrs. Johnson, I have news," he said with a tone hard to read. "It's about Robert's will." "The will? But we opened it years ago, sir." "Not that one. Your husband left a second will with precise instructions to be opened 5 years after his death. That term ends next week." My heart raced. Robert and his surprises, even after all this time. What else had he planned? I asked anxiously. "Next week, on the exact day," he replied. He was very clear: both you and your daughter must be present. The following week, Jennifer and I met in Mr. Rutkowski's office. We were nervous, not knowing what to expect. She squeezed my hand tightly. "Are you ready?" the lawyer asked, showing us a sealed envelope. We nodded silently. He carefully opened the envelope and pulled out a handwritten letter along with several documents. "I'll read the letter first," he said. "Then I'll explain the papers." Robert's strong, clear handwriting filled the page. "My dear Margaret and Jennifer, if you are reading this, it means 5 years have passed since my departure. It also means you overcame difficult times, perhaps the storm I feared, but you managed to find one another again. During my years as a manager, I learned to plan for every scenario. The previous envelope was my emergency plan for the worst. This one is my plan for the best, the one in which the two of you remain together. There is one last property I kept secret, a small island off the coast of Florida. I bought it years ago when it was a wild and worthless piece of land. Today it is a preserved paradise. This island is not for you to sell or exploit commercially. It is a sanctuary, an environmental legacy. Along with the ownership documents you will find the statutes of a new organization, the Hope Island Foundation. It will be responsible for preserving this place and using it for educational and therapeutic purposes. I imagine children learning about conservation, seniors finding peace along its trails, researchers studying its unique biodiversity. I imagine the two of you managing everything, continuing the work you already began on the land next to the Miami Beach house. This is my final gift, not a fortune to spend, but a purpose to fulfill. A legacy not just for our family, but for the world. With eternal love, Robert. When Mr. Rutkowski finished reading, Jennifer and I were in tears. Even after so much time, Robert still managed to surprise us with his vision, his generosity, his faith in our potential. "There's more," the lawyer continued, showing us the documents. Robert left a considerable fund for the island's initial maintenance and to implement the projects, along with specific instructions on how the foundation should operate. In the weeks that followed, Jennifer and I visited the island for the first time. It was just as Robert had described, an untouched paradise, with white sandy beaches, dense forest, and astonishing biodiversity. It covered about 50 acres and had a small structure in the center that would serve as a base for researchers and visitors. Walking its trails, I once again felt Robert's presence guiding us, showing us the potential of the place, sharing his vision of the future. "It's incredible," Jennifer said as we rested in a cove. "How could Dad keep this secret for so long? And how did he know exactly what we would need now?" "Your father always saw further ahead," I replied, remembering Robert's quiet wisdom, his way of understanding people and situations with a depth few could reach. He saw opportunities where others only saw obstacles. He saw hope where others found only darkness. In the months that followed, we immersed ourselves in the Faith Island project. We hired biologists, environmental educators, and architects specializing in sustainable construction. The goal was to create the minimum infrastructure needed to host school groups and seniors, while preserving the local nature as much as possible. Jennifer took on leadership with a passion that surprised me every day. Despite her grueling routine in her medical residency, she always found time for meetings, visits to the island, and planning activities. "I don't know where you get so much energy," I told her one night as we reviewed blueprints at the kitchen table. She smiled, that genuine smile that had returned to her face in recent years. "From purpose, Mom. When you're doing something that truly matters, the energy comes on its own." One afternoon, while supervising the installation of solar panels on the island, Jennifer said something that shook me. "You know, Mom, I'm grateful for everything that happened. The theft, the betrayal, all of it. If I hadn't made the worst mistake of my life, I never would have found my true path." I looked at her in amazement at such maturity. "You really have changed, my daughter. Thanks to you, who didn't give up on me when you had every right to. And thanks to Dad, who somehow predicted it all." She grew thoughtful, staring at the horizon. "Sometimes I wonder if he truly predicted it, or if he created the conditions for it to happen. Maybe he knew that by leaving you that envelope, he was setting in motion a series of events that would bring us right here." I stayed silent, reflecting. Robert, the quiet strategist, planting seeds that would only bloom years later. "Either way," I finally said, "he would be proud of you, especially." The Hope Island Foundation was officially inaugurated on the 5th anniversary of Robert's Haven. We organized a simple ceremony on the island, with local authorities, volunteers, seniors from Hope House, and children from the shelter who were already part of our programs. During the ceremony, Jennifer gave an unforgettable speech. 5 years ago I was a different person. I lived to accumulate things, to impress others, to chase a false idea of success. I even went as far as stealing from my own mother and selling family memories for a luxury trip." A solemn silence fell over the audience. I didn't know I would have to lose everything to find something infinitely more valuable, a purpose, a mission, a new way of understanding what truly matters. She paused for a moment and looked at me, her eyes wet. My mother could have abandoned me, the way I abandoned her. But she chose the harder path, teaching me through demanding love, responsibility, and work. And my father, though absent, still guides every step with his vision and his faith in people. Jennifer extended her arms toward the island's landscape. "This place is not just an ecological sanctuary, it is a symbol of renewal, of second chances. Here, seniors will find meaning, children will learn about nature, and researchers will search for solutions to our environmental challenges. But above all, this island represents the power of transformation that exists within each of us." When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye among those present. Mr. Miller, holding my hand, whispered with emotion, "Your daughter has the light of God in her eyes, Mrs. Johnson. A light that only shines after walking through the darkness." In the years that followed, I saw that light grow. Jennifer completed her residency and began dividing her time between clinical care for vulnerable seniors and coordinating the foundation. The Faith Island program became a national reference in environmental education and therapy for the elderly. One day, during a visit, I found Jennifer sitting on a rock by the sea, watching a group of children learning about caring for sea turtles with a biologist. "Is something wrong?" I asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "No, Mom, nothing bad. I was just thinking about how we got here." I sat beside her, letting the ocean breeze caress my face, now marked by years. "Do you know what impresses me most?" she continued. "It's not the transformation of the place, not even mine. It's seeing how a single decision changes everything." "Which decision?" "Yours. When you discovered what I had done, you could have used the money Dad left to reclaim your property and left me to my fate. That would have been fair, but you chose another path. The path he would have chosen. That's right, I replied. And look where we are now. She pointed to the island, children learning, seniors walking along accessible trails. All of this exists because you decided not to give up on me. I hugged her, moved by her words. So many times I had wondered what would have happened if I had chosen vengeance. Now I knew, none of this would exist. If I had used the power Robert left me only to punish Jennifer, I would have lost her forever. I would have become a bitter, resentful woman. Robert's haven would never have existed. The Hope Island Foundation would have remained an unrealized dream. Sometimes, I whispered softly, forgiveness is not only a gift we give to others, it is also a gift we give ourselves. That night, sitting on the balcony of the small sustainable house we built on the island, I pulled Robert's old watch from my pocket. It was still working with the same precision as when he wore it on his wrist. Thank you, I whispered to the starry sky, for everything, for your wisdom, for your foresight, for the love that continues to guide us. A gentle ocean breeze caressed my face as if in reply. Somehow I knew Robert was watching it all, the blossoming of Robert's haven, Jennifer's transformation, the birth of the Hope Island Foundation. At 78, I had come to understand that life almost never follows the plans we lay out, that sometimes you must lose something precious to find what truly matters, that pain, when faced with courage, can become purpose, and that true love is not just a feeling but a daily decision to believe in the other's potential, even when all evidence says otherwise. 10 years had passed since that fateful message on my phone. 10 years of changes, of challenges, of achievements I never thought possible when I was 68. Today, at 78, I look at the legacy we built with a mixture of gratitude and wonder. What began as a betrayal became a network of projects that touched hundreds of lives. Jennifer, now a doctor, specialized in geriatrics and developed groundbreaking research on nature-based reconnection therapies for seniors with Alzheimer's. The results are extraordinary, they show signs of slowing the disease's progress. She invited me to join her at a conference in Geneva to present our work. On stage, she told our story to the world, giving all credit to my forgiveness and to Robert's vision. Mark appeared unexpectedly to apologize to me in person, transformed by the years in London. I forgave him, not for him, but for myself, because resentment is too heavy a burden in old age. Walking along the beach, watching the bustle at the refuge, children playing with seniors, researchers teaching, volunteers serving, I thought of how it all began with that devastating message on my phone. I held Robert's watch, the one we nearly lost forever, and I understood. The true legacy is not the properties, but the values we preserve, the wounds we transform into gifts, the love we choose to offer even when surrender would be easier. Sometimes it is necessary to lose everything to discover what is truly worth holding on to. If this story of resilience and family redemption moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell for notifications, and give it a like. It makes all the difference. See you next time.